This view was taken from the steeple of St Mary's Church in Shipton in 1893. To the top lies Shipton Court, and the middle right Shipton Lodge. In the left foreground is Church Street, which runs up to join the High Street opposite to the Crown. As the High Street goes south or up the picture, it passes Grove Farm on the right and the former Dee's stores on the left. In the immediate foreground is the field called the Licence, with the cottages which were demolished soon after this view was taken. A wall was subsequently built round the field. For several centuries, the High Street has formed part of an important road link between north and south. This shows a page from John Ogilby's Atlas of 1685, which shows the route in strips from Bristol, bottom left, to Banbury, top right, before the road was turnpiked. Taking a look at the local strip in the centre, when reading from the bottom, the Compass Rose and Burford, and reading up, the road passes through Fulbrook, then up and over the downs shaded brown. Roads to left and right are marked, as are the churches on either side of the road. And the numbers show the distances in miles from Bristol. Just above the 56-mile figure is Shipton Underwood, better known as Shipton under Wychwood. The road continues north to Chipping Norton, just above the 61-mile figure. Between the two towns of Chipping Norton and Burford, the only sizable settlement for the changes of horses and refreshment of passengers was in Shipton under Wychwood, at the Red Horse and Crown Inns. The Crown had been established some time before the 16th century as an inn, and in 1578 the Crown Inn Charity had been set up. From the rent of the inn, the trustees spent surplus income to the benefit of local villages. This view is of the Crown in 1826. At one time, the cottages on the right housed Shipton's workhouse. These were later demolished in the 19th century and replaced by those standing today. During the 19th century, the Crown, as well as being a coaching inn and animal market, also provided the venue for vestry meetings, the forerunner of the parish council. It was also the meeting place for its trustees, for the Shipton Friendly Society and for the Oddfellows Friendly Society, either of those who may be seen, probably seen here. In the 20th century, the Sleigh Club and the Royal Antediluvian Order of Buffaloes, the Buffs, also met at the Crown. When picture postcards came into their own from 1902, the view from the steeple was used as one of the Coombs series of postcards, sold by Mr. Henry Coombs. He was then Shipton's sub-postmaster at the post office in Church Street, where the people are standing on the left. In the bottom right-hand corner you can see the name Coombs Series, but when this was published it of course was some 10 years out of date. This postcard was posted in Shipton in 1903 by someone working at the Crown, which she has marked with a cross in the top left. Another of the Coombs series of postcards, showing the Crown at the beginning of the 20th century. In the 19th century, to the right of the Crown, the second three-storey house and the cottage beyond it housed a school or college for young ladies. It had been set up by Miss Catherine Barter in 1869 and was known as St Michael's. It remained on this site, the school that is, until 1881, by which time her brother, the Reverend Henry Barter, had paid for the erection of a purpose-built college in Milton Lane, which took the name St Michael's with it. The building, of course, was subsequently demolished with Willis Court built on the site. On the other side of the Crown, to the left, the southern side, stood the premises of the harness maker and saddler. The business passed from father to son. The shop, seen in this 1900s photograph, is now residential, although the building carried on well into the second half of the 20th century. James Alfred Willis, the son, is seen here in this family group of about 1950. This Mr. Willis was a member of Shipton's first parish council in 1895 and served as its chairman for the 40 years up to 1946, as well as serving on the committee of many village organisations. This 1920s scene is from behind the Crown, where monthly auction of animals and household clearances were held. In the 1880s and again in the 1910s, as many as 800 animals were put up for each sale, mainly sheep and pigs. Auction sales ceased in 1930 and the site eventually became the home of Wychwood Bowls Club. Before the war, First World War, most of the animals were walked to market. The farmer either walked or came by pony and trap. The trap was then parked and the draft animal was either stabled at the rear of the Crown or left to graze some nearby verge or field. In the 20s, of course, there was an increase in motorised traffic. This mid-20s scene shows the newly built D's stores in the centre, now Costcutter, and it also shows a mixture of motor vehicles and horse-drawn traffic. This late 1920s photo shows the Crown just before its sale, with mounting block on the right of the main doorway and also various notice boards. This view of the main doorway shows a stone sets on the ground, and to the right of the doorway the day's milk supply hangs from the bell pull in the milk can. In 1930 the Crown Inn was put up for sale by the trustees. It was bought at auction by Messrs. Flowers, the brewers of Stratford-on-Avon, who then began a programme of restoration and modernisation. From 1930 to 31, this photograph shows Alfred Groves and Sons of Milton partway through their restoration work. The roof on the right has been completed, and on the ground floor the replacement of the shuttered windows with the stone mullioned windows on the right. The interior was extensively refurbished, with the lounge hall seen here, new mullioned windows on the left, new fireplace and new staircase on the right. And here the dining room after refurbishment. New stone mullioned windows looking out over the High Street. After restoration, the Crown reopened with the more upmarket name of the Shaven Crown. It had changed from an inn for farmers with auction sales to a hotel catering for the increasing holiday trade, who came now not by horse but by motor car and motor bus. The newly named Shaven Crown welcomed travellers and visitors from all parts, including the locals, like the members of the local Heathrop Hunt, and for those who held their wedding receptions there. This taken in the courtyard, as is the next one. And also in the courtyard, during the Second World War, Lady and Sir Oswald Mosley, after their release from prison. And at the end of the war, the officers of the Chipping Norton Battalion of the Oxfordshire Home Guard. Centre row, far right, Lieutenant J.R. Hathaway, who was CO of Shipton's platoon and of Hathaway's stores. Centre row, second from the left, Lieutenant Fairbairn, CO of Milton's platoon. Travelling down the High Street, on the right could be seen D's stores, built in 1919 to replace the former shop opposite to what is now Shipton Standing, which was perhaps a little too far from the village centre. D's stores became Hathaway stores, seen in this photo, when it ran a delivery service for its wealthier clients. Now the shop, of course, cost cutters. A little further down the High Street on the left was Franklin's stores, which also ran a bank agency. This has been taken from a rather poor quality 1920s postcard, but on the right you can see the wall which surrounded the previous field, which was known as the licence. Some of the wall on the right was demolished in the late 1930s to allow the building of Bradley's garage just before the Second World War. During that war, Franklin ceased trading, although it still housed the local branch of the Midland Bank and later an estate agency. Further down the High Street stands Shipton's other coaching inn, the Red Horse, seen here on a Coombs series of postcards from the 1900s. Turn right for Chipping Norton, straight on for Milton. This is the Red Horse in about 1930, when Annie Longshaw was licensee. In 1936, she was reputed to be England's oldest licensee at the age of 98. Half parked off the road is the delivery van of R.L. Dick Avery, whose butcher's shop formed part of the Lamb Inn in the Upper High Street. This shows the bar at the Red Horse in the late 1930s, and presumably the Red Horse had also been tarted up a little bit in the 1930s, as Kelly's Directory of 1939 states that, quote, "The Red Horse now has hot and cold water and indoor sanitation," previously not mentioned in Kelly's Directories. And now a step back in time to 1920 to see the Hospital Saturday Parade passing the Red Horse. These parades were used to raise money for the War Memorial Hospital in Chipping Norton. Floats and marchers would assemble at various points in the villages, like this float alongside Poplar Farm in Milton High Street. Or in Station Road, Shipton, opposite the new Beaconsfield Hall, where we see Old Bill and his dugout. The parade would then make its way to Shipton Court Cricket Ground, where we see some outside the court stables, and eventually onto the Shipton Court Cricket Ground, where we see the Milton group, which had set out from Poplar Farm, and Old Bill and his dugout, which had begun from Station Road, Shipton. And finally, the float manned by the Witchwood Forest Lodge of the Oddfellows Friendly Society. Hospital Saturdays and Oddfellows continued strongly until 1939, when the war put a stop to many of their activities, and the introduction of the National Health Scheme after the war lessened the need for such fundraising.